Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. It's time for my weekly roundup that I said I was going to do, as I can. As you know, I'm working very hard on getting this book out, and that's my main focus. But in order to keep, in contact with everyone and let you know what I'm doing, I'm going to do like a weekly roundup. So this week, I think should be renamed to Convict Inc. Week. Um, not only from him, but all these shows made about him, and. Anyway, I thought I'd give my thoughts on him and his show, and my own personal thoughts on it. Now, I had seen Convict Inc. a while ago, before any of this stuff happened. Somehow he came into my feed, and I watched a couple of his shows, and they were mainly about, I mean, they were interesting. I watched them, and he's met a lot of characters for sure, uh, mob figures, even though he wasn't in the mob, he wasn't like that type of guy. But being in that environment, yeah, he met those people, and his stories were really interesting. I more enjoyed the story of how he met his wife. She's from Europe, Spain, beautiful woman, and how they met and went through all the adversity that they did. I found that really interesting. I enjoyed that show. And, I find him to be very open and honest, actually. That's my thoughts on him. I think he's a good guy um, in general. I don't think he comes across as very honest to me. And even when he's talking about himself, he doesn't big himself up. He says, I did this or I did that, and I like that about people. But anyway, there was one thing that I wasn't so fond of. Um, well, let me backtrack a little bit. Let me back up. So when I first watched him, he seemed kind of calm and even. Now this week, um, I'm not going to lie, I started to wonder, uh, is something more going on here? Because he did seem very erratic and wound up, if you will. And I did start to think, is something more going on here? And then it came, I realized, no, not really. We've all done that. Looking back on my time, the first year of being on doing this, um, I think what it is, he's not used to getting the vitriol and the flack that he's been getting this week. And it's been, non-stop. It really has. And I don't think. I mean, I'm sure that he knew, he's going to get some flack, but the hatred, the vitriol, they're bringing, just bringing up stuff that really has nothing to do with this. To quite honestly, some of it, no. Um, I mean, I heard him say, and I'll give you an example of that. I heard him many times tell people off in his chat and say, we are not going to talk about people's wives. We're not doing that. Um, and then lo and behold, his wife is brought into it, who is not on YouTube really. I mean, she did a show with him, and every occasionally she'll be there, but they talk about other things. They're not sitting up talking about people. They're not. In general, I mean, he does, but not his wife. And so maybe he wasn't expecting that, and so he did what we've all done. I know I've done it 1,000 times, where in the beginning I would hear stuff and I would jump on and rant and rave, and and so But over the time, like I said in my last video, I've learned. I think he needs to just learn to choose his battles. He did say Jeff Nadu had warned him, and he didn't listen, as none of us have. MRE's warned us, I don't know how many times, don't feed the trolls. Do not feed them. And the problem with that is it's very, very difficult to do when it's happening to you. It's very difficult to do, to ignore stuff, but I personally am learning, it's a learning curve. And I'm learning to choose my battles and how to fight differently than how I was. Screaming and ranting and raving on here isn't, it's not only is it not a good look, not that I really care, because once I've lost it, I've lost it. I don't give a shit at that point. But, I'm learning to handle things in a different way and fight in a different way, if you will. And maybe, that'll come to him in time. I saw a little clip that he did earlier. I'm not sure when he did it. I think yesterday. And he seemed a lot calmer. He'd had time to calm down and think about it, I think. And it'll come to him, but overall, I think he's a good person. I don't think he deserves to go back to prison because he's on here disputing whatever with whoever. Does that deserve him to go back to prison? No. Does that deserve his parole officer called, all this stuff, his judge? No, come on. Same thing with Chicky. I'm just like blown away how evil and wicked some people are, that they would call his parole officer to try and get him in trouble. And he doesn't say anything really about anyone. He really doesn't. I mean, he supports Angel Gotti. I guess that's a major crime, on here. But overall, does he deserve to get his, whatever he's on, the house arrest thing, revoked and be thrown in prison because he supports Angel Gotti? No. But anyway, that is what it is. I did make a couple of notes. Now, one thing about Convict Inc. that I really like, when he's focused. I mean, there was one show he did, and he kept going to read out a text message, and he'd start to read it, and then he would be distracted by something else. And he must have done, and then he'd go off on another tack. Well, he must have done that about 5 times. And in the end, I'm thinking, read the freaking text message, for the love of God. So that'll come to him, I think. After a time on here, it'll come. It will come to him. But but getting back to what I really like about him, he really lays things out. And when he was talking about gabapentin and methadone, he really laid it out for us. Now, gabapentin had been mentioned many times over the course of the last couple of years, however long we've been on here. Now, I guess what it was is I believed what was said. When gabapentin was first brought up, it crossed my mind, but I thought, well, no, I believed what was relayed to us about the use of it. Same with the methadone. I knew, however, methadone, as we all know, is used to get people off of heroin, whatever. And it's generally, a treatment plan. Now, the treatment plan is really supposed to be about a year. And what happens is, you get a dose and then they taper the dose, taper until you no longer need it. That's really the purpose of methadone. Now, a lot of these methadone clinics have they call it a methadone maintenance plan, which is not really good for anyone. It really isn't. The whole purpose of methadone is so that you don't use heroin. And as Rob said, people that are on it for a number of years can not do it one day and use their drug of choice and then continue on. So when you're looking at many years of being on methadone, there's something wrong with that picture, because really the treatment plan is normally a year, sometimes 2 years, depending on the person. Everybody's different. But for a long period of time, no, there's something wrong with that picture. Now, the same thing with gabapentin. Now, misuse occurs all the time. To compare gabapentin with Tylenol, vitamin pills, I don't know, Advil. No. You can play it off that way if you want to, but they're nowhere near the same. Nowhere near. Gabapentin misuse occurs all the time. Now, this particular drug, if you will, there is, just as with methadone and with most medications, I'm not talking about just, gabapentin is not an opioid. Now, but it acts that way. Now, some states are putting a control on it. In some states, there is a control. Other states, no. And I'm not sure why that is. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Either it's one or the other. But some states recognize it and they control it, and other states do not. There is a withdrawal. You are going to go into withdrawal if you stop taking gabapentin abruptly. You are. And again, just like methadone, it has to be tapered off. Some people use gabapentin and methadone. It gives the same type of high. I mean, some of these drugs are just so awful. They are. And gabapentin is one of them. You will go through withdrawals, you will. It's not Tylenol. It's not a, I don't know, Advil or something like that. It's not. It's recommended, it should be, withdrawn gradually. So that's where we are with that, I don't know. I just think it's just so odd. It's very, very odd the way people, how am I trying to say this? How they want to switch things up. But, look it up. I mean, it is something that, yes, it's used for what was said it was used for, epilepsy, nerve damage, people with diabetes sometimes prescribe that because of, when they occur nerve damage. it's called neuropathy. And then, seizures, it also alcoholics, that's what they prescribe them most of the time. So, it has its good and bad, but for someone that's long term on that, can it be abused? Absolutely. You can use it, especially if you snort it. You can get the same euphoria that you would as with, an illegal drug. Now, I don't think you can do that with a vitamin pill, do you? Or Tylenol or anything like that. But anyway, enough on that subject. People on here aren't stupid, and you will make your own minds up about it. Anyway, so, and Rob, I think Convict Inc, once he kind of tapers down and kind of woosah, takes a breath, it'll come to him. It'll come to him. I think it already has, because today's show, he was very kind of mellow and he was just talking, about what he knows. It wasn't that he was talking about anyone in particular, but he was talking about, his knowledge of things. And let's say he is knowledgeable. And one thing more, a lot of people have been, he's been ridiculed about this rape that occurred when he was in prison in I think he said it was in the 90s. Anyway, I mean, I'm just going to be honest about that. When he told that story, it absolutely made me physically ill. It made me feel sick. And then I thought about it, and there's rape and there's rape. Now, this particular story that he told, I thought, I did think about that, and I think in that environment, what was he supposed to do? Was he supposed to run into the cell and say, "Hey, stop, this is wrong"? What do you think would have happened to him? I think probably the same or worse. Or, yeah, I guess he could have run and alerted the guards. Guards, come, look what they're doing. What do you think would have happened to him? Again, the same or worse. I think they're two completely different scenarios. In his place, what would you do? Ask yourself. You're in prison. You've got all these burly guys, attacking one guy. The reason for the attack, I thought, was foul. Just because he was going into somewhere they're saying he should. I mean, oh, no. Did he deserve that? No. And I feel really bad for him. And I hope he's doing okay today. I really do. But in his place, what would you do? Ask yourself. You're going to run in the cell? Hey, stop. You're going to run to the guards? What are you going to do? So the two things are completely different scenarios. In any event, so moving on, Angel is doing really well. I'm really liking her shows. Again, this week, she did a good one with Dean Wilkinson. He wrote the book Dark Impressions, which you can find on Amazon. And it was about, I guess his time in prison and whatever. And I was listening to him, and he brought up the subject of sociopathy and psychopathy and questioning whether he was one. Now, I'll tell you, I guess, I haven't looked at the stats lately, but in 1997, I want to say, 37% of the prison population were sociopaths and or psychopaths. Now, people often say, what's the difference? Honestly, really, there is no difference between sociopathy and psychopathy. They're kind of combined. It's a combined thing. And, I can honestly tell you, Dean, you're neither. And the reason that you're neither is because I'm just going to use the term psychopaths, okay? They're one in the same. Sociopathy, psychopathy, same thing. But I'm going to use psychopath. Psychopaths have no feelings of empathy or remorse. They don't think the way the normal human being thinks. For example, somebody's lost a relative, an animal, whatever, and they're crying. What the psychopath does, they may comfort that person. Oh, yes, it's terrible. And they may even cry. But what they're doing, they're mimicking the response. They mimic what they think they should do. But inside, they don't feel anything. Nothing at all. How I know that you're not is because another reason is they're not self-aware. They're not self-aware. A psychopath is not going to sit there and think, am I a psychopath? They're just not. That's how you can tell the difference. You know, now you may have been in a position where you suppressed empathy and then it came out later. That's a different thing. Psychopaths don't have any at all. Not at all. Now then, so this brings me to now several years ago, and don't get me wrong, people, there are psychopathic women as well as men. They're all around us. A good book to read is called The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stroud, I believe. It's called The Sociopath Next Door. They're all around us. It's being able to distinguish who they are and what they are. I tend to pick up on it real quick, and I'll tell you why, because several years ago, in fact, I wrote 2 books on this subject. One was about a female psychopath, and it's a true story, actually. The name of the book is Tori, and it's on Amazon. And it's a true story. And the other reason I wrote it is because a lot of women, and I'm sure a lot of you women can relate, men, psychopathic, sociopathic men will prey on women. And the way they do that is they love bomb you. They love bomb you. Always be suspicious of a man that tells you he loves you right away, he wants to marry you right away, you know, he's rushing you. Next thing you know, he's isolating you. Your family and friends don't like him, but you don't listen. And before you know it, you don't have any family and friends left, because the goal is to isolate you. They will take your money, they will take your self-respect and dignity. And then when they're done with you, they usually, what happens, they already have a victim ready. So when they're done with you, women have lost everything. They've lost their houses, they've had their credits ruined, credit cards run up. There's a smorgasbord of things that happen when you're involved with a psychopath. So always be very wary of men that love bomb you, really, because what it does, it just shows that they're superficial. When you know, normal relationships don't develop like that. They don't, you know, they develop over time. You know, when somebody wants to marry you and move in with you within a few weeks, there's something wrong with that picture. You know, and a lot of women tend to ignore the red flags because they love the, you know, the adoration and, oh my God, and, you know, they're all in love and the guy's doing everything. All your interests are his interests. There are so many red flags, but women tend to ignore them and jump in with both feet, only to find later, it's all been part of the game, and it is a game for them. Now then, so in writing one of the books, I collaborated with Dr. Robert Hare, and he originally wrote the book Without Conscience, and he actually lives in Canada, and he also wrote the Psychopathic Checklist. There's a checklist of things that you can look out for when you're looking, or dealing with someone of that nature, which I'll go over in just a minute. Now, I want to read something to you, and this is what actually sparked me to even write the first book. And listen to this and take it in, women, especially women. Now, it also happens to men too. I'm not saying it doesn't. There are female sociopaths out there, psychopaths. They do all kinds of, they work differently. They'll alienate you from your children. They will, in order to get you in the first place, they will maybe try and trap you and say they're pregnant. There's a whole host of things. I have written about women as well. This isn't just a male thing. But I want to read something to you, okay? Or let you hear this, okay? And it goes like this. He will choose you. He will disarm you with his words and control you with his presence. He will delight you with his wit and his plans. He will show you a good time, but you will always get the bill. He will smile and deceive you, and he will scare you with his eyes. And when he is through with you, and he will be through with you, he will desert you and take with him your innocence and your pride. You will be left much sadder, but not a lot wiser. And for a long time, you will wonder what happened and what you did wrong. And if another of his kind comes knocking at your door, will you open it? Now that is an essay from a psychopath in prison. It's anonymous. A psychopath in prison wrote that. Yeah. And that I always use that when I'm talking about this, because that essentially explains it in a nutshell. It really, really does. Now then, let's go over before I get to the checklist, what I want to really talk about is the systematic abuse of not just Angel Gotti. She's really being battered here, but all the women in on this side, we've all been abused, dragged through YouTube, like up and down YouTube, like I don't know what. Me and Angel especially. Me, I can kind of, there's reasons for that. Do I deserve a lot of it? No. Some of the things that have been said, no. Some of it may be, if you get up here and you talk the way I do and I say what I think, and, I'm going to expect something back. But Angel hasn't done any of that. Her only crime, if you will, was standing by MRE. She loves MRE more. So do I. Anyway, so I just want to talk about that for a minute. Now, if you look, I had to look over the whole thing from the start to the end. And okay, it started with, talking about her father, her family, da 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 da. Now, this is coming from someone that totally worshipped him, had a massive, huge picture of him on the wall, wore T-shirts with her father's image, even wore his aftershave. And all these things in the beginning, I don't really think too much of, like the picture on the wall. Honestly, I just thought, well, it is the mob genre, and he was a major player in that, John Gotti Sr. And so, I didn't really think too much of it. And even with the aftershave and that, now that I did think was a little weird, but it wasn't anything to dwell on at that time. But now these things, you put them all together, and it's it's getting very, very scary and creepy. Sorry about that. I guess the internet went out for a second. Anyway, it's getting very, very scary and creepy. And I'm starting to really worry about Angel and where this is going. Because if you put the whole thing together, you've got this massive picture on the wall, you're wearing his aftershave, you're praising him, I mean, up and down, and he's the best, and their family and everybody, and everything's great. You throw birthday parties for him. You were even going to do one for the mother, her mother, but now the mother's a CUNT, her mother. I mean, oh my God, you can't. And then it's every day for 5 months. Angel is every filthy name you can possibly think of, along with myself. This isn't just about Angel. I'm talking about the rest of us too. NB, me, NB and Angel and Marla. Then you've got Angela Scarecrow, and Teresa Murphy was now brought into it. I mean, I don't think she's been dragged away. We have, but anyway. But if you put the whole thing together, and all because Angel, I think what triggered him, and Angel, you were saying earlier that basically what happened, you said the people that are trying to ram this down my throat about MRE are dead to me. What happened there, when you're dealing with a psychopath, that would be like a dagger through the heart. And that was a dagger through his heart. That is why this is happening now. This is why he won't ever let it go. He, in my opinion, he was in love with you. I truly believe he was in love with you. And when it's like, and so sometimes you refer to it like a lover scorned. It's exactly that. And how I know that is as well, because later on, when he was really laying into you and his wife got on there, she also knew it, because the video is there. I know someone has that video. I'm sure NB does. And you probably do, Angel, where she was saying, that's my husband, and da, da, da. And that she hated when he would have long conversations with you on the phone and whatever. She was blaming you for that. But actually, that's him doing that. He can put the phone down. He can say, well, look, Angel, I've got stuff to do. He doesn't have to spend, or didn't have to spend hours and hours with you on the phone. You know, if that was the case, I mean, you say that's not true. So, you know, I believe you. Because several people have said that about me. Oh, I've spent hours with her on the phone when they haven't, you know, not at all. One time I had to pull my phone records to actually show it that that wasn't the case. But in any event, if you really look at the whole picture, I believe he was falling in love with you. I think when I told you, I think he wanted to sit and eat Cheetos on your couch. I was joking, but not really. And I think when you told him, or when you made that video, you didn't mention his name, but he knew it, he was included in that. And that set a rage. You rejected him. Psychopaths do not like rejection. They see, here's the thing. They don't really care about you. They don't love you in the sense as we know love. When we fall in love with someone, you know, you've got these romantic feelings and whatever. Psychopaths don't have that. Now, they can be with someone, but the only reason that they're with that someone is because it serves a purpose. It's not because they love them or whatever. It's because it's something that they're giving them that they need at that time. And so when you cut them off, it's almost like oxygen, the air that we breathe. When you cut that oxygen off, they can't breathe. Now, they have no problem in, if they're done with you, for example, they're gone. They don't have any problem with that. They don't look back. They don't care. They don't. But they don't like it when you do it to them. They don't like that. And so they will do one of the first things that happens, even though with you and him, it was not romantic. On his part, I believe it was. But what the first thing they do when you're involved with a psychopath, sociopath, whatever, if you break up with them, they will sully your name. They will tell everyone who'll listen what a bad person you are, what a bitch you are, what you did to them, da 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 da. That's happened. They will call you names. Everything that's happening is what they do to get back at you. And as you see, 5 months of the, and it hasn't ended. It's not going to end because he doesn't know how to end it. He doesn't. He's totally fixated and obsessed with you. And it's not just in, you know, because of, there's romantic feelings there, which is why he's so passionate about it. That's what's going on. And I think you need to start really seriously thinking about, because when you think about everything that's happened, okay, he had that massive picture of your father. After you and him fell out, it was on his wall for months. He would not take that down. I would not be surprised if that picture is hanging in his bedroom somewhere. I don't believe he got rid of the picture. The aftershave. Okay. Now, this is what confirmed it for me. Last couple of days, he's put his face on your father's, he's superimposed his face on your father. I mean, think about that. He really, you know what it reminds me of? Is it Buffalo Bill? Where they try to be the person? I think he really wanted to be a Gotti. And when he was close with you, he saw that, okay, I'm getting closer to my goal. And when you nixed it and cut him off, this is why this is happening now. That's what I think. I think it's become a serious mental obsession. I think even to wish you dead and all this stuff. I mean, come on. I mean, even a layman can see this, that this is not normal. It really is not. And I think you need to start really thinking about doing something about it. For real, I'm not joking. Because one day you probably will open the door and there he'll be. You know, that's how obsessed and crazy this has become. He's now put his face on your father's image. And he's done several of them and he's putting them all. This is really not normal behavior. It really is not. But anyway, let me just go over this checklist with you real quick. And this is for everybody, you know, that thinks they may be involved with a psychopath, sociopath. I believe I did this once before, not on this scale, because it wasn't on this scale. But, you know, I couldn't be bothered looking for that video. So I'm going to do it. Dr. Robert Hare, who I collaborated with on my book, wrote this checklist, and see what you think. Let's see. Okay, so hold on 1 second. Okay, so there are 20, so bear with me, and we'll go through each one. So the first one is glibness and superficial charm. I think we saw that in the very beginning. You know, everybody fell under that spell, thought, you know, yeah, you know, he seems a real nice guy, really humble guy. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go through I'm going to read each one. You know, I'm not going to comment on each one. You will hear what they are and make your own minds up. Bearing in mind, if 2 or 3 on this list, or let me say 3 and above on this list, apply to anyone that you are dealing with, then it might give you cause for concern. Let me put it that way. Okay, so the first one was glibness and superficial charm. The second one is a grandiose sense of self-worth. Third is a need for stimulation, proneness to boredom. Pathological lying. Cunning and manipulative. Lack of remorse or guilt. Shallow affect, which means, you know, they're very shallow, they're very superficial. It's about money and things and, you know, yes, we've seen that. Callous, lack of empathy, parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral controls, promiscuous sexual behavior, early behavior problems, lack of realistic long-term goals, impulsivity, irresponsibility, failure to accept responsibility for own actions, many short-term marital relationships, or non-marital, they don't always have to be married, juvenile delinquency, revocation of conditional release, which, you know, normally if it is probation, you know, if they're let out on probation and they constantly revoke, you know, do things to get revoked, you know, not necessarily that one, and criminal versatility. Those are the 20 traits that Dr. Robert Hare looked at when, and he went and interviewed psychopaths, or people that he considered psychopaths, in prison, and asked some questions and made a checklist. So you all have heard the checklist. Make up your own mind, but I really do think this systematic abuse of Angel Gotti and her family needs to stop. What has she really done? Yeah, okay, she's responded to a few things, and I don't blame her. I would have gone berserk by now. I would have been going berserk too. Not that she's ever really gone berserk on here. She hasn't. It's time to put an end to it. But Angel, I will tell you this: the behavior from the time that you met this man to now is something to be very, very concerned about. And I'm saying that because now he's putting his face on your father's image. There's something very, very weird, creepy about that. He's wearing your father's aftershave. He's wearing your father's image on T-shirts. And it's true. I mean, he said himself, he used to, his father took him by social clubs, pointing out mobsters and whatever. And I think he say he got a glimpse of your father at one point? It's been a 43-year thing then, and I think you really, really need to be concerned about it, especially now. When I saw his face on your father's image, it basically cemented what I had been thinking. It really had. There's a serious mental disturbance going on. There really is. It's not to be sneezed at. You can poo-poo it, but I'm telling you, there's something very, very wrong with this picture. Very wrong. And you need to take precautions, and you need to be prepared to defend yourself, because one fine day you're going to open your door and he's going to be there, possibly with a bag of Cheetos, but who knows? It's really, really becoming sinister. It's becoming very dark, and it is 100% not normal. Anyway, that's it for me, folks. I'll probably do my rounds later in people's chats. I try and support as much as I can where I can. Actually, I went in, is it Aegon? Has a channel about the House of Dragons, and I really hadn't had time to watch that. I love that type of stuff, and I watched the first episode last night, Aegon, and I love it. I think is it English? I don't know if it's an English production. Everyone seems English on it, but anyway. So I've got to go. I'm going to do some shopping and running around, and I'll see you all later. And Angel, heed what I said. There's a disturbance going on, and it's escalating. It's escalating by the day. Okay? Anyway, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.